Hey everybody, this is Modern Refugee. Starting here just a couple minutes early. Let everybody get in here. Start having a chat. Yeah, Library Lizard says Venezuela sounds like it will pop off at any minute. Yeah, I've been kind of watching that, and Venezuela, it's the same thing like the Middle East. It's about oil. There's a lot of natural resources that sit underneath that country, and that has been whoever gets that lined up with them, they're going to benefit from that, I'm sure. Hey there, Betty. Hey there, Dirt Farmer. How you doing? I know about dirt farming. Hey there, Gallo. Welcoming everybody in here tonight. It is snowing like crazy outside. We are anywhere in the like 8 to 15 inches of snow path right now. So yeah, and of course, the entire family's got to work tomorrow, so everybody's gonna have to drive in it tomorrow morning. Me, least of all, because I work close to home. And it was another insane day at work. I mean, I don't know how many bags of wood pellets we sold um, snow blowers, sold a bunch of salt, just tons of salt. I can't get over how much salt that we sell. And people were trying to finish up projects. So, I sold just a ton of lumber today too. Uh, yeah, we were just a hopping today. It was the Black Friday weekend. You think people were buying gifts? It wasn't gifts. It was like stuff people needed for their homes and their farms and stuff. Water heaters for livestock tanks. That was another thing that was people were asking for today. A lot of people were putting up film for their windows, stuff to keep their pipes from freezing. That was all the stuff that was going out the door today. Hey there, Scout. Hey, Monkey Food Garden, Nicholas, Sweet Irene, Hockmeyer, Patrice. Hope everybody's doing good today. Salt in the spring when it goes on clearance. I do the same thing, Library Lizard, and then I kept a couple of those spreading jugs, and then I just refill them spreading jugs because I've only got one, basically the walk between the house and the garage. That's the one that I spread the salt on, and then sometimes the front steps, depending on what we're doing. But that is basically it. We only got about 8 inches here in Northwest PA. I don't know. I think we're probably due for a good foot. It's been a while. Is that Pad you're watching from the bar asking for a friend? No, not at all. By all means, share me out to your bar friends. I probably have watched stuff in a bar too. No, snow and ice is that's just of course we were talking about that. My wife and I we were just talking about that. She was watching something about all the poisonous stuff that they have in Australia, and that's one good thing when you live up here in the north. Some of that nasty stuff, that stuff freezes and gives you a little bit of a break. Hey there, Coney. Coney, I wanted to remind you, I do have a video. I'm going to be doing a video on ferro rods, how to prep them, how I use them, and basic fire making with that stuff. But we had 50-mile-an-hour winds out here all week, so I didn't really have a chance to get outside and film anything because the audio would have been absolutely terrible. But that is definitely on the list for you. Wanted to do that video for you guys. I got a couple other videos planned out that I want to do too, just as soon as I got time. Hey, Patriot Preacher, no snow here in the southern end, northeastern Ohio. Was out feeding livestock. Heard lots of shots. Deer season opened. Yeah, actually, our regular firearm season tomorrow is the last day, and then it goes into a late seasons. I still got all my stuff loaded. I haven't had a chance to get out and been babysitting, doing that kind of stuff. Been doing a lot of um, little projects, cleaning stuff. I would love to do a live stream and show you guys, how to put together an AR or how I clean and update magazines, how you upgrade an AK, there's all kinds of stuff like that. I would love to do a video on, but YouTube would beat that down in a heartbeat. So unfortunately, it's against the rules, especially on a live stream, to show any of that interesting stuff where people could really, really benefit from. I am drinking hot tea tonight because I got a little start of a cold or something going on. I can feel it in my chest, but this time of year, it's up north here. 4:30 today, it was more or less dark. It was overcast. It was starting to snow. I mean, it was like it was like evening at 4:30 tonight. And people don't get enough vitamin D. They're not out in the sun. That's why vitamins are so important to keep in your preps, because a lot of illnesses and stuff, that all starts when your body, your immune system gets a little bit weak, because your vitamins and your minerals are off. So stuff like zinc, magnesium, vitamin C, vitamin A, vitamin D, those things, boy, you need to have that stuff in your prep. So when like this time of year, so up here we got to pretty much take vitamin D supplements, because you just don't get enough sunlight. Oh, dog bite. Took a trip to Lehman's in Ohio. That is someplace I should go. I should go there, and I should actually do a video. I would love to go see Lehman's. I mean, we got our Amish stores up here, but Lehman's, I remember my mom, she would get Lehman's catalogs. They were like that thick. And there were just certain things that she would actually order out of Lehman's. That's back in the day when you wrote out a check and you put it in an envelope and you put it in the mail and you waited for the stuff to show back up about a month later. Common Man, how you doing? Lake Lizard, how you doing there in Southern Illinois? Hey, Prepper for the Ages, Roger Dodger. Need to start with some elderberry syrup. I actually have some tea here, and I got some chamomile in it, a little bit of mint, and then some raw honey. And I didn't make it too hot to destroy all the good stuff in the raw honey, so it's kind of just medium warm. But I can already feel it kind of helping in my throat and stuff. If I go to Lehman's, let you know I'm about an hour away. If I went to Lehman's, it'd probably be in the summertime. But you know what? I will definitely do that, Patriot Preacher. Yeah, multivitamins. I keep both the multivitamins, and then I have a lot of those like that emergency, that airborne stuff. I've actually had pretty good luck with that stuff, because it gives you a big old boost of those vitamins. And then I've got it in orange, and then I've got it in the raspberry stuff, and I pass that out to the family members too. Like when the kids start complaining they got drainage in the throat or whatever, I'll give them that. And sometimes that saves a trip to the walk-in clinic, which it's a lot cheaper to go through a couple packets of that airborne than it is to pay $35 or whatever at the walk-in clinic. And you know what, that gets into the other thing that I wanted to talk about. I can really see where the economy around here is slowing down. People are pulling back on projects for next year. There's people that are revising budgets for 2026, where they had some stuff planned and they're pulling all back on that. Everything, all the projects are on hold. Not that there has been any layoffs, but there is a complete hiring freeze on all the places around here that normally hire. Everything's on a hold now. Everything's on a standstill. There's a lot of stuff with the car manufacturers, because we're in Michigan, and a lot of that stuff, that's all outsourced. GM and whatever. None of those places make their stuff anymore. They outsource all the parts and everything like that. And all those, Dana Corp and some of these other places, AutoNation is another one. They're all pulling back. They're laying people off. They're canceling projects and stuff, and all that stuff kind of trickles down to all the other businesses in the area. So I'm really starting to see everything kind of set up to be a really crappy economic outlook for 2026. I hope I'm wrong, but the way it's looking right now, it ain't looking very good. No Amish stores here in Central Texas, but I would love to look through Lehman's online. We got some really cool Amish stores here in Michigan, but as far as I know, they don't do anything as far as any type of online sales or anything like that. That one over there in Clare, especially, if you're in Michigan, it is on, gosh, I can't think of the name of the road now. The exit off US 10 is Loomis Road. That I remember, but I can't remember what the name of that. I got to look it up now. It's bothering me. Let's see. Pretty bad. You're looking up something Amish on the internet. What is the name of that road? Collinville Road. Collinville Road is the road over there in Clare where a lot of those Amish businesses are. And from that Loomis Road exit to actually Old 27 there in Clare, that's about, gosh, I'm going to say maybe 5 to 8 miles. And that's where not all of them, but that's where a majority of those Amish businesses are in Clare. Yep, Collinville Road. Everybody's chiming in now here. Mike Tango Whiskey, how you doing? High Rig Freeze is coming there. Mike Tango Whiskey is out in the PNW, the Pacific Northwest. Yeah, Lehman's, like I said, maybe I should have to do that. Take a run down there to Ohio and check Lehman's out. But yeah, I remember mom getting Lehman's catalogs and ordering stuff out of there. And boy, they had everything in there from butter churns to hand saws to, gosh, they even had the old cook stoves, the old wood-fired cook stoves. We actually had one of those at our house, and my mom ended up selling it at some point. We just got a regular wood stove, but we had an actual cook stove. And boy, I tell you what, if I ever won the lottery and I could have my own place the way I wanted it, boy, I would love to have one of those old wood-fired cook stoves. It had the little cistern in it for hot water, and it had where you could bake bread. So you fired that thing up. It was not only it was your wood stove, it was also your actual stove, which you could cook on or whatever, and it had a shelf up across the top where you could keep your stuff. And it had, it had the dampers and whatever on it, and it typically would have the pipe come out the back and go into the pipe going up. Boy, I would absolutely love to have one of those nowadays. Yeah, people, that's the thing with electricity nowadays. People have just gotten so used to all that stuff. You can live without electricity. It's not, if you have a few things set up, it's not the end of the world to live without electricity, but you have to have other resources. You have to have your wood stove or whatever, your solar or whatever that it is. But you can definitely do it. But yeah, I've really noticed the economy is really tanking around here, and I don't even want to say tanking. It's just like everybody just put on the brakes, everything that was planned and going on, and you really couldn't tell that this summer. I mean, things were going like gangbusters around here in the summertime, but right now people have really pulled back. Businesses have really pulled back on stuff. And then, of course, it's the harvest season more or less is wrapped up here. So now everything's getting back into the production line of it and stuff. And so now it's just all wait and see until next spring. Things slow down without electricity. Oh, yeah, that's very true. Wendy, oh yes, I would love to have one of those stoves. The economy is going down everywhere. People are struggling. Yeah, and that's the big thing, prices. That's why one of our children, basically moved back home. It was just getting, by the time they had their rent paid for and their utilities, and they had gas in the vehicle. They had like $5 for the rest of the week to live on. It's just rent and stuff is absolutely astronomical right now. One of the people that I work with, they were talking about their son moved out, and he's older than what you would think, and he just purchased a house with 2 acres of land. It's $180,000, and for around here, that is, she said when they bought their house, it was basically the same thing. It was a couple acres of land with a house on it. I think she said that they paid like $80,000 or $90,000 for it. So he literally paid $100,000 more for the exact same thing that his parents paid for, back 15, 20 years ago or whatever. So that just tells you how much that prices are skyrocketed around here. And but I've noticed where home sales for about 3, 4 years, home sales around here, as soon as the house went up, it was sold. But now that's houses are lingering now. Things aren't selling quite like they were 2 and 3 years ago. And then two, people around here, we had a huge influx of people moving here, around 2020, 2021. People moved in here, and they were just all gangbusters to go live out in small town America and country and stuff. And now it's kind of turning around. The things that I've been noticing people saying, hey, we put our house up for sale. We're going to sell it. We're going back to the city. And we got a couple, medium-sized cities, I'd say, around here, and folks are moving back to those cities because they're kind of the people that I've been talking to. They're like, well, there's just nothing out here. There's nothing to do. Our on Friday night, our friends, still work in the city, and they come out here to the country to live, whatever, 30 miles away, 40 miles away from the city. And their friends say, hey, come on in. We're going to go to the bar and we're going to go paint the town red or whatever. And then they say, well, now we come home, we change, we got to turn right around. We got to go back to the city because there's nothing out here. Stuff is closed. I can't get a pizza at 2 in the morning, out here in the country because, stuff closes because people It's not a 24-hour world out in rural America like it is in a lot of the cities. And that is actually, people moved out here thinking, hey, it's going to be great to be out in the country, live the Norman Rockwell thing. But then they realize they don't have all the stuff that they normally have, that they were used to in the city. It's not the same out here, and that's turning people off. So now there's a small percentage of them people that flocked out here in 2020, 2021 that are starting to float back to the city. So, that's kind of how that's going. Nicholas finally got a CB radio set up at home base. Cool. 12-foot antenna. Awesome. We need to have we need to go from the struggle bus to the victory van. Wouldn't that be something? I fabricate all off grid. I can make a lot with off grid electricity. Electricity is very important. Mosaic, he's the guy to watch if you want to know how to do stuff. He's got a real setup down there in the island. Mike Tango Whiskey, 200 square foot for residential. So what? So it's $200 a square foot. Is that for like renting? You have to explain that to me a little bit better there, Mike. I'm not quite sure exactly what you mean there. And I mean rent for us here in our little town right now, that can be, I'm going to say, anywhere between $800 and $1,200, depending on what the amenities are that go along with that. And it's even a lot more in nicer parts, I guess, depending on what you get. And the bigger the house, of course, the more that they get. And a lot of people will tie the utilities in with the rent here, because then they get it. If the tenant doesn't pay the utilities, that goes back against the landlord, and then it gets liens and stuff put on and goes on to the property taxes and stuff. Oh, it's kind of a mess. That's why I never got into the landlord thing. Yeah, going back to the city is suicide. But if people that's all they know is the city, living in the country, everybody makes it sound like living in the country is just this cakewalk. But I'm telling you what, if you're not used to how things are in the country and how people are in the country, and you go from that hustle and bustle in that city, it's different. It would be the same like if I moved to New York City. I wouldn't even know where to begin to deal with that kind of stuff. I'm used to going outside and seeing a few trees and seeing the crops grow and stuff, and I just wouldn't, you wouldn't see that in the city. It'd be a culture shock for me for sure. Hey there, CV Farmer, how you doing? Snowing good? Yeah, I'm expecting quite a bit of snow. In fact, I probably got to go into work early tomorrow. I got to run the snow. I asked the boss if I could run the snow plow. I like to playing with the big equipment, I guess. Yeah, never go back to the hellhole that's called civilization. Like I said, I'm just so used to living out here. It's just the way it is for me. But I'll tell you what, I've seen that this summer, especially buying a 2,500 square foot house is 500K. Yeah, that I understand that totally there. Thanks for explaining that, Mike. I appreciate that. But yeah, we don't have any really $500,000 houses around here. But the stuff that used to be like $60,000 is $150,000. And there's some of these young kids and stuff that I'm working with, whatever, they're like in their early 20s. They're chucking out $150,000 for a house, and the first day they move into it, they got to start fixing stuff because there's stuff wrong with it. I can't even fathom that, to pay $140,000 for a house, and the first thing you got to do is start fix. And I'm not talking about like putting paint on it. I'm talking about there's things wrong with the major infrastructure of the house that they got to fix. Drains in the basement, and electrical problems, and problems with chimneys and stuff. That stuff is not cheap to fix. Even if you know what you're doing to fix it yourself, you still got to pay for the material on that. Material is expensive as heck. Yeah, 7-Elevens, all night Wally Worlds. Yeah, and that's people, they move out here, and then what did they expect, that they were going to get a pizza delivered at 2 a.m. out here, or they were going to have this like smoking hot nightlife. I mean, the only time there's any nightlife in our little town is when they have the summer festival and they got a beer tent for a couple of days. That's the extent of the nightlife out here. Oh yeah, Electricity is a force multiplier. Mosaic Homestead, yeah, and that's true. Yeah, I mean you can cut wood by hand, but if you got to do it, I've cut stuff like sheets of plywood and lumber and stuff when we were, when I was first starting out helping guys do, projects and stuff. But I'll tell you what, an electric saw can, and like he said, that's a force multiplier. We are landlords, but we get the renter's water bill and pass a charge along with the rent due. Yeah, I would, and they pay, but we know it's paid. And yeah, and my neighbor, he has one rental place, and that's the way he does it. Everything is folded into the rent, because he said there's been times where he got stuck with, and they would do that. They would throw the utilities that didn't get paid, they would throw that back onto his property taxes, and he had to pay that with the property taxes. So that was the kind of the lien. So then that's the problem that you have, taking care of that stuff. Hey there, Bad Bobber. Hey there, Dean Mullins. Hey, Creative Redundancy. How you doing? In the early '80s, we paid $75,000 for our homestead, and now it's a test now. It's $500,000. Hey there, Patriot from Warsaw. Well, then that's the other thing, and and I know people that live up in the UP, that they were having that problem. They bought this pretty reasonable place. They did some updates and stuff on it. Then all of a sudden, the prices and the value of everything went up, and stuff around them started selling them. Now they got their nice little place that they had all, squared away, and whatever their little, I don't want to say off grid, but they got their kind of little place out in the country where they got their, wood stove, and they got they're away from people and whatever. Now all of a sudden their taxes are skyrocketing because everybody around them that was selling stuff has been paying astronomical high prices for stuff. Now they're getting taxed right out of the place that they worked so hard to build. They're getting massive property tax bills because everything is crazy and is selling like crazy. Hey there, Teresa Buchanan, how you doing? Our town had 1, 2 stops. Nothing goes on after 7 p.m. on Sunday, and that's kind of how it is here. We got, of course, we got the Dollar General every 5 miles out here in the country. There's a Dollar General, but I think they close at 10 now. But there was a lot. There was well, I remember there during COVID, all the Walmarts were 24/7, but now they close like at 11 or something, or at midnight. So they're closed for like 6 hours, and they've never opened back up. So and we've got most of the small towns out here will have one like gas station that'll be open late, or maybe even 24 hours depending on where it is and stuff. But that is pretty much it. And stuff still does close early on Sundays, if it's even open at all out here in a lot of the smaller. And people aren't used to that. People are used to going to the Home Depot and getting whatever they want, on a late on a Sunday afternoon. And that's just not the way things are out here in the country anymore. Drops Homestead. Teresa Buchanan. How's things downriver? We got here. Yeah, the prices of, my wife and I, for the house we're living in right now, what you can see behind me here, we paid in 1999, we paid $48,000 for this house. And what it's worth now, I don't really know, because I'm not moving out of it. I don't want to, we got a house that we got paid for, and we got, everything fixed in it the way we want. We kind of know what everything is with this house. The last thing that, and we're older now. We don't need a bigger house. I can never figure that out, why older people that their kids have all moved out, then they go either build or buy just this massive house for just like two people. It's like, I don't want to take care of all that anymore. The older I get, the less and less I'm going to want to take care of. So I'm more of a downsized type person, I guess. Yeah. Drops Homestead. Yeah, that happened to me in Georgia and Washington. Went up in taxes, and insurance is crazy. Now I'm in Arkansas. Yeah, and that's the way it is with a lot of the rural places out here. It just drives the taxes sky high, and then all the people that live there, or grew up in those towns, that they're just getting priced right out of everything because of the way prices are going up. Just even if you don't buy anything or whatnot, you'll still get nailed on the property taxes, and that's why so many people out here got got really a chip on their shoulder over property taxes because, you never really own anything. You never really own your home. You pay if you don't pay your property taxes, you're out the door. You could live it in that place for 40 years, 50 years, and miss a couple property tax bills, you're gone, you're out. And that is kind of bullshit. Beware of the city creep before you buy in the country. Dollar Tree just came up on our main road in the past few months. Yeah, I was really blown away driving across northern Wisconsin, seeing how many Dollar Generals they had. I mean, literally, it was like every 5 miles there was a Dollar General sitting at a crossroad. And there was like nothing around it. There'd be like a woods and a couple of fields, and there wasn't even like a house around it. I'm like, why would they want to put? And we got a few like that here. I can think of a couple of crossroads right here, right off the top of my head, that they just used to be, out in the woods country crossroads, and now there's a Dollar General sitting there, and it's like, man, what made them think that they wanted to put a Dollar General there, and how much business these places get, I really don't know. And I know they don't. I know people that work at Dollar General, and I know they don't get paid very good, so it's like, just blows my mind. But yeah, I can see where there's big economic. I don't know about massive economic problems. Like, I don't know if there's going to be a massive Great Depression right around the corner, but I can see where there's definitely a recession for 2026, because if these projects don't get, start going forward on some of this stuff, that's a lot of people's employment around here. I can see. And then there's a couple people that I know. The one person in particular, he works for a big dairy operation, and they're cutting back on hours. And that's another thing. People will get laid off, or they won't get laid off, but they'll get their hours cut back. They're used to getting 40 or 45 hours, maybe a little bit of overtime every week, and then all of a sudden, boom, they get cut back to whatever, 35 hours or whatever. And it's like, they just got to tighten their belt, because what else can they do? And there's a lot of, sometimes if they cut your hours back enough, you could like file for unemployment and stuff, but that's just a massive hassle. And whether or not the hours come back, that all depends on, especially when it does to deal with agriculture and stuff, that goes by the weather and the seasonality of things and stuff. But a lot of places will do that. People that were used to 40 hours, all of a sudden they ain't gonna get 40 hours no more. And then some places they say, well, if you don't meet your minimum hours, then they go ahead and do something crazy, like say, oh, well, for the last 6 weeks you haven't gotten enough hours, so now you're not full-time anymore, now you're part-time, so now you're stuck at 28 hours or whatever that is. So then they screw people. That's just the way business works. They tried raising dog bite. They tried raising our property taxes. Yeah, our property taxes, I just automatically expect it anymore to go up. And I know people that pay an astronomical, that did stuff like, build a house in the last 20 years and stuff, and they just, every time they turn around, they're just more. I know people that have retired and actually went back and got a summer job and stuff to put away a little extra money so they can pay the property taxes on their place. And you got people that are retired, whatever, 65 years old or whatever, they're retired now. They got to go get a summer job so they can pay the property taxes on their home. It's kind of bullshit. F. Gallo, we're selling a cabin down in Albany by PA. Can't afford all this crap. Yep. Also the work. I'm 68 years old now. My wife is 67. Yeah. I mean, I know some people that are pushing 70 and they're still working because they're paying their property taxes. Dollar Generals everywhere. Here, you can drive 20 minutes in any direction and hit a Dollar General. And that's the way it's getting to be up here too. Like I said, when we went out to the Mayo Clinic there for my wife, I could not believe how many Dollar Generals were out there in northern Wisconsin. They were just everywhere. Milk is around 15 to 16 per 100 pounds. I don't know what the price is for protein, butter, fat, and the milk is. Yeah, I don't know. Like I said, a lot of the dairy operations around here, they're cutting back on hours, and I don't know if that has anything to do with the stuff not selling, or I don't know how it works with the I don't want to say what do they call that when the farmers get breaks on stuff, subsidies or whatever. There's a lot of that stuff that goes on too, but I don't know on all that stuff works, but that stuff is a thing. There is stuff for that. Yeah, property taxes, like I said, there was, and one a person I know, they went up to the UP and they built in Marquette County, and they built a little place in Marquette County, and their taxes are just astronomical. And they said if they would have to do over again, they would go further west in the UP. They would go to Baraga or Ontonagon County, and they would build because they don't have quite as many. Marquette County in Michigan is one of the wealthiest counties in Michigan, and people there just get killed on the property taxes. And then the local people there, people want to have their little stores and their coffee shops and all this other stuff. Well, then the local people that would work in these places, they can't even afford the rent or to buy a place up there. They live in the town, they grew up in the town, they can't even afford to buy a small place in that town because it was all people that moved in there and drove the prices of everything all up. So then people that move in there, they want all these services, but then there's no locals to even do that employment because everything has been priced out of stuff. And that's too, we know people that live up in Petoskey. Petoskey is a very wealthy town here in Michigan, and it's the same thing. There's all kinds of work up there because everybody's wealthy. So, places like restaurants and places like lumber yards and hardware stores and these kind of places, things that you need in towns for the economy and everything to work. There's nobody to work in these places, so they have to either pay an astronomical wage to get somebody to work there because they can't get anybody to work, at a hardware store for $15 an hour because it's all wealthy people and wealthy kids and stuff that's up there. So they can't get anybody to work for $15 an hour in these places, but you still need all these places to make these communities run. So it's a pain. My daughter actually did really well up in Petoskey back when she was like 14 years old. She got paid something like $15 an hour to scoop ice cream for a couple of summers because we had friends and stuff up there, and she stayed up there for the summer, and she made enough money to buy herself a computer and all this other stuff that she needed and she wanted to have for school, scooping ice cream, because she had the gumption to go up there and work, and she did, and that's the kind of stuff with the economy. You don't hear as much of that stuff anymore. Nobody. And then some people want to work, but most kind of don't anymore. My favorite cashier at our food coop is 80 years old. I'm 81 and retired for sure. Drops Homestead. Foreign milk. I don't know if they bring. I mean, I don't know if they bring foreign milk in here or not. I've never seen anything on dairy products that said that it was foreign, but anymore you don't. Anything's possible anymore. John Cray, more city people need more police, more fire, more ambulance, more school, more taxes. I'm going to mention this now. I got into it with somebody online once. This was years ago, people moving out to the country. And I said, hey, oh, you have all these people moving out to the country, but there's not enough infrastructure to support all these people. And the guy says, oh, well, the infrastructure, that's going to catch up. Your infrastructure, that's going to catch up. They're going to build more schools and all the people move out of the city and they move out here to the country. That's all going to catch up. And I said, when the hell has infrastructure ever caught up? I mean, they don't got no money to fix the roads. You got Bay City that sold the bridges because they couldn't afford to repair them. So they sold them to whatever, some company. And now you got to pay $5 to drive across a bridge that the taxpayers built. And I said, that's the most ignorant thing I ever heard in my life, that the infrastructure, that's going to catch up if a bunch of people move into your area. Bullshit it is. That was kind of one of the most ignorant things, probably the most ignorant thing one of the most ignorant things that I ever had the interaction with on online. Hey there, frontline warrior. Oh yes, definitely snowing here in mid Michigan. I want less people where I live. I'm kind of thinking that we had such a spike in people moving out here, but I'm thinking now it might turn around and go in the other direction now, that some people might think that living out in the country ain't quite as the way they thought it was going to be. But it's one of those things, only time will tell. Hey Kentucky, how you doing? I try to buy from the farm store and the Amish farm stands, bend and oh yeah, the dented can stores. That's something that the most Amish communities that I've been in, they have at least one of those dented can stores. They buy they buy that stuff, I don't know, by the lot or whatever, the stuff that's outdated or dented cans or, overstock and stuff. And over there in Clare, there used to be a couple different ones. My wife and I, we would go over there about twice a year, especially when the kids were smaller, and we would get things like boxes of cereal and stuff that we needed to pack their lunches for school. We would get actually pretty good deals on that stuff. It was well worth the drive over there to Clare to pay that. And we would actually have stuff. That's when my parents were alive and good yet too. And there'd be certain things that they said, hey, if they got this or that, grab that for us. And we would do pretty good going over there. We wouldn't go over there all the time, but I'm going to say about twice a year, maybe even 3 times, we would sneak over there and we would do pretty good. They used to have a couple of those stores in the Thumb too. There used to be some over by toward the Cass City way, and of course, then there's that big one down there by Sandusky. But that's just a regular Mennonite store there, that Country View Bulk Foods, and that is so popular. There are people from down in the metro area, Detroit and stuff, south of 69 and stuff. They come up here to go specifically to that Country View Bulk Foods, and that was basically on the back of somebody's farm when they first that had the they actually uh, they had that in the back of a farm, and that grew and got to be so large they actually had to build a whole new complex because that got so much business. They expanded that out, but they have those small town hours too. They're closed when a lot of the big box stores, they are still open. Yeah, and that's the thing that I'm noticing here. What used to be good rural area around here where you had a little bit of woods and you had some different things and stuff like that. That is they're building. There's pole barns going up, there's houses going up, there's things that, where there was a farm, it's been tore down completely and they build brand new houses there. And there's one place I'm thinking of entirely. There was an old farmhouse sitting there that was probably still serviceable. They knocked the whole thing down, leveled the whole thing, completely built all brand new stuff there. Oh, what do I got? Somebody's. Yeah, so that's kind of the stuff that we're dealing with out here, and I can see where, if there would be an SHTF situation, I can see where there would be problems with the people that have thinking that the country is going to somehow save them, and it's not going to work out that way. And seeing those people move out of this area here that had moved into this area, I can see where there can be definitely issues, and there's problems. Uh, Groups of people have a tendency to be abrasive with other groups of people, and I can really notice that in a small town America. Small town America is very clannish, very cliquish to a certain extent, and those things are things that people are going to have to deal with come SHTF. You're going to get people that are going to kind of bond together where, people that are perceived as outsiders are going to have a lot more difficult time with that. People talk about, forming mags and groups and stuff and that kind of thing for, preparedness. But unless people have really been through hard times together, that bond isn't there. That's why military training is, very difficult, because that forms that shared hardship. And if you don't have that shared hardship with people, you're not going to have that bond. People are going to bounce. People aren't going to stick around to share that hardship with you. If you get what I'm trying to say here. Mosaic, with skill, infrastructure can be taken anywhere. Look for the right place. Rest is discipline and consistency. Sounds like wise words there. Yeah, and like I said, Monkey Food Garden around here, I just can't get over all the construction that's been taking place here in the last 5 years, and that's basically exactly what you got written in there. There's people building houses all over, and the small town ain't. I could drive around here, and there's businesses and there's stuff here where there used to be houses or nothing. There used to be a field there, and now there's a bunch of stuff there. It's something. 25,000 Amish live in upstate New York. I don't really know how many Amish live in Michigan, but I know we have multiple communities. There's communities in the Thumb. There's communities over by Clare, up in kind of northwestern lower Michigan, up by Cadillac. I know there's Amish communities. I know there's some Amish up in the UP too, but they're not. It's not like it is like in the Thumb where you drive down M53 and there's horse and buggies all over the place. And that's another thing. When you're in an Amish area like that, you really got to watch out because there's almost every week you hear about some accident where somebody hit a horse and buggy. People come flying through on these main roads and stuff, going to their cottage or cabin or whatever, and they go through these Amish areas, and then there's accidents, and there's a lot of that stuff that kind of goes on. It's another thing with living out in the country that you got to learn to kind of deal with. Journey North, howdy from Wisconsin Deer Camp. Hey, have a Ligon Kugels for me, would you? Miss Mary, hey MR, I finally made another live. Oh, thanks for being here, Miss Mary. I appreciate you. Drops Homestead. I seen places with 178 acres. I might buy that next year. Well, I got a small piece of mom and dad's farm is what I got left, but I don't have 170 acres. I don't think I could. I don't think I could afford 100 of the property taxes on 170 acres. Saturday night after market sales starting to be too many people pushing. Patriot Preacher, Amish have moved in right around us in the last few years. The thing about the Amish is a lot of them they pay cash for everything. Even like when they have some kind of medical thing, that's all cash. They only deal with cash. Hey there's Sunset. No problem. No worries about being late. Hey there. 85 from Cadillac. How you doing? We got Schwarzendruber Amish in the area. They don't use orange triangles or lights on the buggies. Oh, all the Amish around here, they have lights on their buggies now because there's been so many Amish that have been hit. I don't know how they get permission to do that with their elders or whatever, but they've got lights and stuff on their buggies because there's been so many accidents and fatalities and stuff because of that. So Mosaic and long-term SHTF, I would form a community with hardworking Mexicans and guarantee the community won't be starving. And that's the thing with like gardening and taking care of your fruit trees and having livestock and all that other stuff. That stuff takes a lot of work. You can't there's no easy way out of self-sufficiency. Leave if there is, I've never, yes, you could get some equipment that makes your life a little bit easier to do that stuff, but then that equipment has to be maintained and you have to take care of that stuff. I just know this from growing up. There's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears that goes into, cutting your own firewood, canning your own food, butchering your own meat. I mean, keeping the tractor running. If that's all you got on your small farm is one little tractor with a drag or a plow or something like that. You gotta keep all that stuff running. It would cost a tremendous amount of money to have a self-sufficient homestead that was kind of already set up. And then to keep those homesteads up and running. I mean, I see people, especially in the preparedness community, they want to have a farm and they want to have this homestead and they want to have this off-grid thing. Where me, as I'm getting older, I don't want to have more stuff. I want to have less stuff, and I want to be more efficient doing the things that I already do, so I don't, as I age, I can still kind of grow my own potatoes, or I can still can my own apple cider, or I can still have a little bit of firewood there. I want stuff that makes my life easier as I get older, not the other way around. I see people that are my age or older, they're taking on these huge, I guess, changes in life to have these, farms and all this other stuff, and they're just learning at a later age of that stuff. I don't want to have more as I get older. I want to have less. I want to give this stuff off to my kids and say, hey, you guys can take care of this stuff for a while here. I want to like downsize, and that's something that you don't see a lot in the preparedness community. You see people that want to constantly get more, more, and more. And there's only about so much that you can, physically take care of. And that's something I guess I'm a little bit different than some of the other prepping channels that are out there, I guess. Mhm. On Sunday nights, it'll be like a buggy parade. Yeah, there's times when I have seen 10 or 15 buggies all going down the road at the same time when we had to go one place or another or going on a delivery or whatnot. There's been different times when I've had to take deliveries over to where the Amish communities are, and there might be 6 or 7 buggies going down the road, and stuff you gotta watch out for. Bruce Lee said this, it's not daily increase, but daily decrease. Hack away the hack away the unessential. The closer to the source, the less waste there is. And that's true. That's true. Like I said, as I get older, I I don't want to have more to take care of. I actually want to have less. And then on the flip side of the coin, there are some things that cost a little bit of money back when I was younger, but I was glad that I spent the money on them, and I see them as investments that are, paying off now. Things that were a lot cheaper back 10 years ago than what they are now, and they're not going to get any cheaper. Coney B, yes, the older we get, we want to concentrate on what we know is important for us and ours. The Amish would be a great community, but you won't be let in long. Oh yeah, that's something with Amish. You want to have a good working relationship with those communities if you have them around. But like Mosaic's right about that. You are still an outsider, and but it's still good to have inroads into those communities that they still recognize you because they're Amish people are kind of shrewd business people. So if there's a chance to make money they're probably going to take advantage of that. And even if there would be an SHTF, if they know you and if they have done business with you, you are still going to be a little bit more likely to be let into that community to do business and different things than somebody that they have no idea who they are. And that's one of those things. You want them to know your name. You want to have a little bit of that, back and forth, because if something does happen, the more places and the more resources you have to your ability, the better off you're going to be. MR, are my kids preppers too? They're young yet. So that's one of those things. As you get older, you become more and more. Uh, I'm going to say they're seeing, like, my daughter that just had the baby, she's starting to see now why I do the things that I do. She says things to me. Says things to me. It's nice that dad's got a grocery store down in the basement. And I don't really look at it as a grocery store. It's just our pantry. But she's seeing the benefits of having, that stuff on hand and, kind of rotating through your food stocks and whatever. She's seeing the benefits of, putting things away for a rainy day when things happen. And like I said, that's something that I don't think that the younger generation in the 20s now, that those folks you have to kind of see some bad times a little bit to a certain extent so you can see the benefits of having that stuff. And when I was a kid, we were poor growing up, so it was nice to have all the, even though we didn't have any money, it was nice that we had food down in the basement. So I'm thinking that my kids, the older they get, the more and more prepperish they're going to be. Whether or not they'll ever be the way I am, I don't know, but I can see where they definitely see my point of view a lot more now than when they were teenagers. If that kind of makes sense there to you, Sunset. Antim 569. I'm establishing fruit trees, perennials, and self-seeding plants whenever possible. Oh yeah, I'll tell you what, it's awesome having a fruit tree. If you got an apple tree or a pear tree, or if you got an apricot tree or something like that, it's great having that stuff. I mean, I get so much pleasure out of my apple tree. I've made anything that you can make with apples. I've pretty much made with apples. And when our apple tree we first moved in here, our apple tree only bared every other year. And now, because I've trimmed it and I've tended it, I've given it fertilizer, I've buried fish guts around the trunk, and I've done all this other stuff. I've done ways to water it when it's in the dry part of summer. And now I've gotten, the last few years here, we've gotten apples every year. And nothing gives me more pleasure than going out there and seeing them, them apple blossoms in the spring and stuff. So it does, when you grow your own stuff, a certain amount of, you have a certain amount of pride in having that stuff. Because when I tell my neighbors, hey, if you need some apples, go back there and grab yourself some. Now I can provide that to my neighbors and my family members or whatever, my daughters and stuff, and they come over here and they want some apples. I said, hey, there's some boxes out in the garage, help yourself. I like being able to provide that stuff. Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. I don't even know what to say. I mean, thanks for watching, and thanks for being here. Like I said, I try to just give, when I do these live streams, I just like to have it organic where people can just discuss things amongst themselves, and just talk about kind of how they do preparedness. And I just don't want to see kind of these basic things in these basic simple ways. I don't want to see these things go by the wayside. I want this information, this knowledge to be propagated. But Kay, there, I really appreciate it. I don't even know what to say. Thank you so much. Like I said, I appreciate everything that my subscribers do for me and my viewers. Like I said, I just try to provide something that some of the other prepping channels don't. I try to have just a more common sense, down to earth way to go about things. But I really appreciate that. I'm very humbled, very much so. I say learn what the Amish know now. Oh yeah, and that's part of the reason why I show some of the stuff in my channel is I show kind of those basic skills, how we dry stuff, how we can stuff, how we put stuff up, how we smoke meat. I tried to get all that stuff done. Yeah, I'm just blown away. Thank you so much. I don't even know what to say. I just appreciate it. You're very welcome. I just try to help people out with my channel, and hopefully over the years I have done that. Do I dehydrate apples? Yes, I have dehydrated apples. I haven't done it in a few years, but I have dehydrated apples. The thing with dehydrated apples is the family, they didn't get used. Stuff like applesauce and apple butter and cider, that stuff always seems to get used. So I just sort of concentrate on doing that stuff anymore with the apples from my apple tree, creative redundancy, to try to keep that keep that stuff getting used. If I make a whole bunch of dehydrated apples and they don't get eaten and they go to waste, then that was kind of a waste of time all the way around. So I try to stick with the stuff that I know that my family and stuff is going to eat. Wendy Hanford, yes, we need to stop the government's ability to raise our taxes. Taxes should remain the same. I think it should come to a point where, if you're elderly, if you've been paying taxes on your place for, 40 years, or why should you have to pay any more taxes on that the last 5 or 10 years of your life? Let you live out the rest of your life in the home that you built, and not have to worry about losing the place that you've lived in your entire life when you're like 75 years old. That's just crazy. It's just crazy. Hey there, Karen. How you doing? How's the weather down there in Tennessee, Karen? Stephen Ross, nice to hear you be able to get your apple. Yeah, like I said, and I think there was just certain things in the soil that the apple tree was missing, Stephen. And I think by kind of watching it every year and trimming it back, and I had that arborist look at the tree there and stuff, and I think I got it to the point now where I'm kind of understanding how the things go, so I can get that to produce for me. It was the same thing, with my garden. I had basically just worked up a part of the yard, and the one garden now I've got to the point where I know exactly what grows, where it grows, and stuff in that little plot of land. And my other garden that I plant potatoes and stuff in, I'm still working on that one. There's still some things that I'd like to get on that, but that stuff takes time. People do soil samples and soil tests, and my mom used to do stuff like that too. But I've been around this stuff long enough now. I can look at the plants and I can kind of see where the deficiencies are, and I kind of know what things the soil needs to, like potatoes like slightly acidic soil. So, I kind of crank up the compost to try to keep that acid level in the soil where the potatoes like it. And there's like all kinds of stuff like that, like onions are a bulb, but garlic are a bulb. So when I want to put some type of fertilizer, organic fertilizer, or whatever, where I plant my onions and my garlic, I want that to be basically bulb related. I want it to be bulb food. You used to be able to get actual fertilizer that was called bulb food, and I just look for those same numbers, those same micronutrients. I look for that same stuff, in organic fertilizers or whatnot, and put that in those areas. And I try to put my compost that I make here, I put that compost back into the soil every spring when I'm planting stuff. I'll work some compost in where I'm going to plant this or that, or the starts. If I start tomatoes or peppers in the house here, a couple scoops of my compost goes in that hole when I take that plant outside. And that's just kind of how I do it. Well, guys, it's getting to be almost an hour here. I'm not going to try to take up your guys' entire evening here, but I had a very good chat with you guys again here tonight. I really enjoy these kind of organic conversations just to talk about whatever comes up. I got a couple of things that I want to mention, like I said, about the kind of local economy here and how things are really slowing down here. And then, just let the conversation go from there. And you guys bring up more topics and I could possibly sit down and write all down, and then we could just have a discussion. And there's always a good back and forth here in the conversation in the chat. So I really appreciate everybody taking time out of their day to spend with us. Hey, like I said, um K Crate are there 13. This always reminds me, these live streams that I do, it always reminds me of when my parents would go over to the neighbors or whatever, and they would go a visiting. A visiting was a thing back, on Friday and Saturday nights and stuff. When I was, 8, 9 years old, I'd get drug over to one of my mom or dad's friends, and they'd sit around and, drink coffee, have coffee cake, or have cookies or whatever. And they would literally talk about anything and everything. And that's basically, this is just an electronic version of that exact same thing. This is just us, it's just me visiting with the help of the internet. I'm just visiting with all you guys, and I really appreciate each and every one of you guys taking time out of your week to spend an hour or two here with me when I do these live streams. But I really appreciate each and every one of you guys for stopping by and being here. I hope you guys always get some information, some entertainment out of my videos and out of my live streams. I appreciate you guys. God bless, and take care out there.